the internal subjective perception of the shutdown of the nervous system at death? I think that's a really interesting question.
You mean to what degree are these things different and similar?
Yeah, that in some ways what happens with both psychedelic and mystical visionary experience and certain relationships to apocalyptic form, to the end of the world or things all transforming. There's a point where the self dies, and it might happen in a millisecond, but subjectively would be the end of the world.
Yeah, and because I think everything works basically the same way, it would have a fair profundity, because you would be seeing the primal assembly language code.
But the whole idea of psychedelics as an end, as a rehearsal for that kind of event.
Yeah, it's like Buddhism with turbocharged or something. Now you can
run through the bardo, or a bardo.
Take the Diamond Sutra for a spin.
How does one live your life in the shadow of such an event? What does it mean to live in the shadow of a different kind of culmination? Or how does one live in a post-human
Well, maybe
world?
that's how you actually can change your existential mooring. That's what you deal with. That's the peg you move, is this image of your own fate or end of life, or what exactly all this stuff is worth to you. And as you move that around, you see things differently.
How has a lifetime of psychedelic use, an adult lifetime, from teenage, sort of set you up for facing death?
Well, I guess it leads you to the idea that things are probably more complicated than you can suppose. Therefore, supposition is not to be trusted. So, in other words, given how weird life has been, why rush to prejudge death? It's bound to be mighty strange. Life was mighty strange. And I'm curious. I would think anybody would be curious. I mean, it's an interesting situation to be told that you have a very limited amount of life, death, because it composes your mind for you wonderfully. And you start paying attention, asking the questions, and I have no insight into what it will be, but I suspect it isn't what anybody thinks it is. I mean, the argument that nature has this desire to preserve form is, I think, self-evident on enormous scales of space and time, and very local scales of space and time. So why fight it? It must be that that somehow matter is spiritualizing itself or mathematicizing itself, or somehow
becoming virtual forms.
So, and what psychedelics show is that the world is full of surprises. I mean, I consider psychedelics a constant and verifiable miracle. The fact that can happen to your mind. So it means all kinds of things are possible. Nothing is to be assumed or prejudged, given A, biology, B, psychedelics and culture. Probably that's a long enough list, but those two things alone secure the weirdness of being sufficiently. We can call it quits.
It's late too. You should get your rest, Terence.
Yes, I should. We all should.